Brian the Leafs guy here. It's been a little while. I'm in the process of opening a gym. I live in North BC, so like super north, and I'm opening a gym, so it's taken a lot of my time and effort. But I'm committed to making one video a week from now on. I was making a whole bunch of videos up until the deadline, but I didn't after the deadline. Just got busy, sidetracked with life. But every Saturday is my plan to drop one video, just talking about the week and seeing what's up in Leafs land. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about what just happened. What just happened in the season, what happened to finish off our season, Sheldon Keefe getting fired, just kind of going over the gist, and then my projection as to what the outlook for this summer, as to what I think the Leafs should do. So first I wanted to go over, let's change my scene here, go over what our Leafs roster looked like during the playoffs. And just starting from that point and then progressing onwards, because going into the deadline, I said the things that we needed a number 3 center, or a middle 6 winger, one of the two, but somebody who could provide a bit of offense, who could be a defensive presence as well. I didn't think that player was realistic. I think it was going to be too expensive for the options that were out there and nothing that would have fit long term. In terms of our defense, this is clearly where I saw the biggest hole, and I think all of us did. I said that we needed more size and physicality, and we needed more puck moving ability from our defense, and we needed preferably somebody to play beside Morgan Rielly, an actual legitimate top pairing defenseman, or at least a top 4 right D. So looking at what Treliving did at the end of the deadline, I just thought to myself, what's the point? I just didn't see. I thought we just threw a bunch of picks away for nothing. I just didn't understand the moves. Let me rephrase that. I understood the moves. I just didn't think that they were enough. So at that point in time, I was like, this team isn't a cup contender, so why do we just spend those assets for no reason? And it ended up playing out that way. Joel Edmundson added that physicality and that size that we needed. Lyubushkin added physicality and size that we needed. But we didn't get that puck moving ability, and we didn't get that top pairing defenseman. We decided to put Lyubushkin beside Rielly again. We've done that in the past. We went Lyubushkin beside Rielly, we went Schenn beside Rielly, and we went Lyubushkin beside Rielly again. And what's the point? They're not top pairing defensemen. Like, those are number 6 or 7 guys. Luke Schenn and Lyubushkin, if they're your number 6 or number 7 defensemen, great. But you shouldn't be playing them beside your top pair defensemen. They should be at the bottom. They should be in and out of the lineup type of guys. It was just too expensive. Like, I just really didn't see the point of those moves at all. Like, I understood getting that physicality. We needed that. And I understood, let's say, get Lyubushkin, but we needed to get somebody to play beside Morgan Rielly. It just didn't make any sense to me. So the defensive core just wasn't good enough. And when we talk about that puck moving ability from the defense, we've been talking about this for years. Sheldon Keefe has been talking about this for years, that we didn't have enough of it. And that's the whole reason why we signed John Klingberg in the offseason. I understood it. I didn't like it. And it turned out not to be good. And I'm guaranteeing you that John Klingberg was a signing because of Sheldon Keefe. Said we need somebody on the right side who can move the puck. Ultimately, it didn't work out because we need somebody who can move the puck, who can also defend. That's a different story. But when we look at the D-core as constructive going into playoffs, we went Morgan Rielly, Lyubushkin, Benoit, McCabe, Edmundson, Liljegren. For the most part, we put Brody in one game as well. Lyubushkin, Benoit, and Edmundson are all offensive black holes. There's zero offense coming out there. Like, if you look at their statistics for their entire careers, there's no offense coming from any of those guys. None. Zero offense coming from all of those guys. McCabe and Liljegren can move the puck. They put up a few points, but nothing too crazy. And then Morgan Rielly clearly has that offensive flair, but he didn't really produce for the second half of the year as much. So you had Morgan Rielly, who's an above average, who's a high-level offensive defenseman. McCabe and Liljegren, who are average at moving the puck. And then Lyubushkin, Benoit, and Edmundson, who are just black holes. I could have told you before the playoffs started that we're going to struggle to score goals with this defense. And then once we get into the playoffs, we just couldn't score. Going into one of the last games, I think it might have been like game 6. It was one of the elimination games. I recommended taking out, I think it was Edmondson and Lyubushkin, and putting in Timmins and Brody just to get a bit more offensive ability. Brody's not offensive, but at least he's an average, and then getting Timmins in there just to get a bit of scoring going. So keeping Liljegren in. I can't remember if I took out Benoit or Edmondson. One of the two. Either way, to get Brody and Timmins in just to get a bit more puck moving, just so we could score. Never happened. They didn't do it. And let's be honest here, we just couldn't score. Our forward group was great, to be honest. The biggest change I would make, we didn't get that number 3 center. So when I look at this roster, I more or less made the lines how they had them at the end. Holmberg is one that stands out to me as being not the right fit. I really like Pontus Holmberg. I think he's a really good bottom 6 forward. He has, especially on the wing, either a 4th line center or a winger. But as your number 3 center, it's a weakness there. Just not strong enough. So I would have liked to get an upgrade there. If Holmberg was our 5th center, and having a legitimate number 3 center, kind of look at Adam Henrique, that one of those type of guys would have made a huge difference. But overall, nitpicking on the forward group, I actually really liked the forward group. Connor Dewar was the one trade line addition that I liked. I didn't know much about Connor Dewar, just a hardworking 4th line center winger, can play a lot of defensive minutes. And he's a restricted free agent, so he still have his rights. It sounds like he just underwent shoulder surgery, but he should be a player. He's young, he's 24. He should be a player that would be good for our bottom 6 over the next few years. So I'm really happy with the Connor Dewar addition, right? We wanted a number 3 center, we got a number 4. But it's going to be long-term. He doesn't have a contract going into next year, but I'm assuming it's going to be something under $1 million, kind of like $950,000 for 2 or 3 years. I think that'll be a great addition moving forward. Next to that, didn't like what Brad Treliving did at the deadline. I understood his logic behind getting Lyubushkin and Edmondson because we needed size and physicality. Check mark there. However, it really didn't push us over the line, and I don't think anybody, probably even Brad Treliving, assumed that this team was good enough. So I wasn't too sure why we were wasting all those picks to get that done. I would have just rather rolled with what we had, or do another move, kind of like Connor Dewar. Somebody who is restricted, who we had team control moving forward. So maybe we go into the playoffs thinking, okay, this isn't good enough, but at least we can keep this player moving forward. Either way. But big offseason, Sheldon Keefe got fired. I actually am a fan of Sheldon Keefe. I think he did a great job. I don't believe that we lost because Sheldon Keefe was our coach. I know constantly getting ripped apart, but this roster wasn't good enough, especially on defense. I think he did very well considering the pieces that he had. And I wish him a lot of luck. His message, I don't know if you've seen it, but go check it out. It's 2 or 3 minutes of him just thanking Toronto and everybody for his opportunity being in Toronto. I thought it was super classy and really well done. He's going to get another job. He's a great coach. I do believe it was time to move on, even just because of the lack of success that we've had. So I was okay with him. I was okay with them moving off of Sheldon Keefe, even though I think he's a great coach. I would have been happy keeping him as well. What I'm really curious to see is John Tavares and Mitch Marner. Let's be honest here, those are the two that stand out. They only have 1 year left on their contracts, but they both have full no movement clauses, meaning they can't get sent down to the minors, they can't get traded unless they agree to it. And I honestly believe one or both are going to agree to move. I'll go into this maybe next week's video as to how I would shape this roster. Obviously, the assumptions are that John Tavares and or Mitch Marner are willing to move. So a team that I would see as a perfect fit for John Tavares is Chicago. If John Tavares waves, it would be a great move for Chicago, great move for Toronto. I would see Toronto just sending John Tavares and his full cap to Chicago for nothing, for future considerations. After his signing bonus is signed, he only has $910,000 of actual salary. So they eat his $11 million cap hit, but only have to pay him $910,000. He would be a great mentor for Bedard. He would be a great mentor for all their young guys, Krasinski, their second overall pick this year as well. I think it would be a great move. And then Toronto gets $11 million to spend, and they could use that money on defense and to fill out the rest of the roster. They could bring back Bertuzzi and Domi. Domi, I believe all of us want Domi back as long as the contract is reasonable. 4 years, $4 million. 5 years, $4 million. That would be perfect. Bertuzzi, something like 4 years, $5 million. I'd be really happy with. I think Bertuzzi takes a little bit of a pay decrease. Domi gets a pay increase. I would really want both of those guys back. Domi would be the higher priority, but I want both of them back for sure. As for Mitch Marner, 2 teams that I can see him going to would be the Seattle Kraken. Seattle has so many good pieces, but they don't have superstar talent. Mitch Marner would be superstar talent, and they have the pieces to make a trade work. I'll get into that maybe a little bit next week, but that would be an interesting one. And the other one is Utah, also known as the Arizona Coyotes. So the Utah team also could benefit from some superstar talent. They have a lot of assets. They have a lot of picks. They have a lot of things that they can move to make this work. And I think the Utah is wanting to compete basically immediately, and adding a guy like Mitch Marner to that team and actually spending all the way to the cap can make it work. But we'll see how it plays out. We'll see. I like Mitch Marner a lot. I think he has soured quite a bit in Toronto. I don't think he's happy here. I'm talking, based on what I'm seeing. So we'll see. But next week, I'll go into the type of moves that I would make and the things that I think the Leafs would need going forward. But I just wanted to do a little quick ramble here and go about things. It's disappointing that we lost. It's to be expected. I expected this going into the playoffs. Whether it was the first round or second round, I didn't see us as a cup contender this year. I liked a lot of the things that we had on our team. I like what Tree Living has brought to this team. I really like the additions of Domi. I like the additions of Bertuzzi. I like the Matthew Knies and how he's been progressing. I like Robertson and how he's been progressing. And I like the type of moves that he made on defense, but they were stopgaps. They weren't, and I believe Tree Living knew that. He added a bunch of little stopgaps. Like, I like the Benoit signing, and I like that he got extended. But we'll see. He has a lot of work to do. And he has a lot of space to do it, especially if he can move John Tavares and or Mitch Marner. The amount of cap space that we have is pretty crazy. So this roster can look a lot different next year. Anyways, so great to be back. So hopeful that everybody here is doing amazing. I so appreciate the feedback that you always give me and the comments. 1 video a week. I'm not going to overdo it, but I think I can manage this. Comment below. I love you guys. Brian, the Leafs guy, out of here.